Welcome to the Bulletproof for BJJ podcast. Today, JT and I are going to tell you about the 3 signs that you might be overtraining. You're going to learn what those signs are and how to deal with them before they become a full-blown train wreck. You will also learn what mine and JT's personal indicators of overtraining are and how we like to deal with them. And lastly, we're going to present to you how peaks and valleys are an important aspect of your training. And when you can understand and embrace this, you will have the longest and most consistent training success. Hope you enjoy the episode. By the way, if you dig the show, do us a favor, like, subscribe, follow, tell your friends about it. That simple thing goes a really long way to getting our show in front of more grapplers. Appreciate you. Let's get into it. Hey, so was chatting with Dilch, trains me in the mornings, chatting with Ray too about the subject of this episode. And it was quite well timed. It was a suggestion from Dilch because the guy's just gone through big stint of uni.
Yep, hard work.
And I think he's still got some shit going on, assessments or whatever, but like classes or whatever are done. Or basically he's coming towards the end and he's fallen to pieces.
Yep.
And we kind of predicted it. We knew we're in week 7 of the program that we're doing.
Yep.
And there had just been like a growing sort of list of indications that were making us think, and we actually had a conversation about that. Yeah, you're probably going to crash like once uni's done. You're probably going to hit the wall. And so I thought, well, this is an important thing to talk about because even when you're aware of these indications from God or from Helio or the universe, it's still very easy to ignore them.
Yes.
But most people have no idea what the indications are.
Yeah. Those signs from wherever you might say, the universe, your body, letting you know you're doing too much.
Exactly. And so this is what we're going to get into today is like, what are the 3 main signs that your body's going to give you or the universe is going to give you when you are overtraining?
Yep.
Now, I guess as a kind of preface to this, we have to understand that training is a stress on the body and it's a necessary stress. It's that stress that makes you better at jiu-jitsu, makes you become fitter, makes you become stronger, builds stronger joints, etc. If you don't have enough stress, then you don't change. And then if you have too much stress, then you can injure yourself.
Make it worse.
That's right. So we're always in the training process trying to manage this relationship with stress, right?
Yeah. It's a type of stimulus. So and that can be stimulus for making joints stronger if you let them heal, or it can be so much stimulus that those joints break from the overstimulation because they've not healed.
And I think most people who are going to the gym and stuff probably don't think about it much in that way, do they? Of like, no. I do the work here, I create the damage here, and then I take the time away from the gym, and that's where the repair and the new muscle and the, whatever, the tissue remodeling and shit occurs.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. I've always found it pretty awesome to think that you do this stuff, you break your body down, and provided you don't do anything too crazy and you give it enough time, it fixes. And not only does it fix, it gives you that little bit extra, like, hey man, don't do that again. Be like, haha, joke's on you, buddy. We're going to do it again. And I'm going to use that little bit extra to go harder. I believe, with this, one of the, people who go to the gym understand this from the kind of inherent, muscle soreness you get from lifting weights or running or whatever you might be doing. You go, right, I have to rest that until that soreness goes away. But in BJJ, we're like, nah, you sore. Oh, f it. Pull harder, bro. Just sack up. Just get out there. You got to be able to fight when you're sore. You're like, yeah, but this is really neglecting the body's natural process of healing. And don't get me wrong, sometimes you've got to be able to operate when you're feeling a bit sore, a bit stiff, but we really need to unpack these signs. So lead us in, Joe. What is the first sign that you're doing too much?
Yeah, so 3 main signs that we're going to chat about today. I don't actually rank these in order.
No specific order.
No, they could come at any point. They could all come together. It could be, you might have the one for you that comes up often. But the first one is that your niggling injuries start to rear their head. So that thing that you get, I've actually got a little bit of a lower back thing at the moment.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say that it's been a recurring thing for me since my knee surgery.
Right.
So I think it's an indicator, right?
Yep.
And it starts to rear its head. It starts to go, hey man, I'm a bit aggravated. Hey, I'm sore again. And you're like, oh, that, and it's sure. Let's just kind of cancel out or place the caveat. You might have just done something specifically in a particular training session that aggravated the thing. But more often than not, it's probably that sign from your body that, hey, I'm not handling the amount of load you're placing on me right now.
It's a bit more systemic. Even though it might show up as, my back's a bit jacked or my knee's a bit swollen. This is a symptom of your whole system is not quite back to where it should be, right? And I think that's the hardest thing because there's many contributing factors, whatever it might be. I mean, obviously you're working on specific moves that are stressing your lower back, but 4 weeks ago, lower back was doing pretty good, right? Like it wasn't as much a thing,
I mean, not as right now.
Not right now.
Yeah,
the ups and downs. I think the difficulty, the thing that was like taught to me a long time ago by Paul Chek. I did a Paul Chek holistic life coaching seminar.
Did you?
It was very expensive.
I'm a big fan of Paul Chek.
Paul Chek was a legend in the health and fitness industry, and Chek practitioners are very detail oriented, very smart folks, the high level folks. I did his level 1, level 2. Anyway, he was talking about physiological load. So he was saying that if you get someone walking in the door and you go, right, they're coming in to lift weights, say, and they're going to squat 100 kilos. If they haven't slept, they haven't eaten, they're dehydrated, they're stressed, they technically already have about 50 kilos of physiological load on them from life.
Right.
Right? So just because they squatted 100 kilos last week doesn't mean they can do it today. Like 50 kilos today might feel like 100 kilos because of all this other shit that is f***ing you up. And we just write it off, right? Because we're taught to just keep working, just get on with it. We have this attitude in Australia, which is like don't complain, get on with it. Like that's a bit of a thing, right?
And that's also the prevailing kind of ethos of strength, isn't it? That's like, no. You got to go harder than last week.
Do the thing.
Progress here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's a fantastic way to put it, right? Because I've had that with clients, certain clients that I know are carrying stress, and I've often had, not often, but a few times I've had that situation where they have that recurring thing. It's often lower back. Yep. Often it's a very common sort of region for that, right?
Yeah.
And we'll push it on a day, and we won't push it, but we'll just push it maybe to where we were last week or something. But I'll be like, this feels hard today. I can see they're struggling. And then they'll be like, oh, and you're like their back goes out or whatever.
Yeah.
And they got to take a couple of weeks off training, and it's the whole thing. And you're like, I somehow knew that intuitively that was going to happen.
You anticipated it.
Yeah. And it is like it's not for the 20-year-old hearing this, it's probably doesn't make any sense to you right now.
Well, I think I
tend to think it comes about once you got more on your plate.
I think 20-year-olds feel it. They just don't care. They have less responsibilities. They're like, whatever. My shit hurts. Whatever.
Maybe.
No. I think it's.
I just feel like I was bulletproof.
No, but I think this is rosy-colored glasses. Imagine. No, I talk with some younger folks at this powerlifting gym I train at. And they got plenty of aches and pains. They just don't give a shit. They're just doing it. They'll just do it anyway because they just like, I don't know, I'm not broken. I'm not fully broken. Whereas like the more you know, I think sometimes that can inhibit you too. Like ignorance is bliss in a way when you're younger.
Yeah.
You don't know. You're not like, oh, is this wrist cancer? And you Google it. You're just like, I can't hold my beer with my left hand. I guess it's going to have to be my right, or vice versa.
Yeah.
We might be talking about beers. We might be talking about many things. But here's the thing. I know for sure when I'm not recovered, I get swelling in my lower limbs, like knees and ankles. It's poor circulation, basically.
Right.
And that means my body's not recovered. If I wake up in the morning and I try and squat deep and I'm like, oh, my knees are like tight. Like you might have had the experience, you're on an airplane, you sit down for a long time. Now, I'm not someone who's inactive, but, you know, inflammation and different things like niggles can show up in different ways.
Yeah.
For me, it's knees and ankles.
How about that?
Yeah. And so if I can't do a full ass to grass squat and I'm like, oh, my right knee's sore, that tells me body's not. Old grey mare sheep ain't what she used to be. So don't ignore the niggles is what we're saying, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's like, you know, you might, the best strategy is sometimes to just like accommodate it in training so that you don't make it worse.
Yeah.
And then respect it for a little while until you feel like things are back on track. Now, let's get into it at the end. Let's talk about the other two things and then let's get into what some of the causes of this stress might be, right?
Yeah.
Second one that comes up is you start to get sick.
Yeah.
And this is like, oh, I caught a cold. Now, same caveat. You might have just come into contact with a bug or your kid sneezed on you or someone else's kid. And
Kids bring it home, don't they?
yeah, like maybe you just caught a cold, right? But more often than not, your immune system is compromised. And this shit that normally your immune system would be able to handle, it now can't handle.
Yeah.
And you're like, I was sick only a couple of weeks ago and now I'm sick again. Yeah, or like, I never get sick. Why did I get sick
When
now?
you're sick, yeah.
And I mean, I find that one is, that's probably less of a thing for me, the actual like catching something. But I notice like I'll get skin problems.
Right.
You know, I'll get almost like eczema.
Yeah.
Eczema kind of symptoms and that, or like broken skin. I'll be like, what the
No, similar. I'm similar. One of the ways that you can improve your ability to submit your opponents is by studying. Submeta.io is the answer. The most comprehensive online guide to submissions, positions, passing, you name it, they've got you covered. Whether you're a white belt and you're just beginning, or you're a black belt and you've been in the game for a while, they've got something which is going to improve your jiu-jitsu. It is in a very easy to track format so you can build your game and also remember the lessons. When you use the code Bulletproof16, you get $16 off at checkout. Shoo. In the sense that I had really bad bronchitis as a very little kid, like 2-3 years old. And as a result of taking a bunch of drugs to try and sort my lungs out at the time, I have asthma-related symptoms, even though I don't have asthma. So I get eczema. It's autoimmune, basically.
Right.
And that is like, if I start to get like those patches around my eyes, my elbows, back of the knees, armpits, stuff like this, that's your body going, hey, not happy here, chief. You want to slow down the caffeine, mate?
Good guy.
Yeah, and it's straight away, even though obviously you can have ointments and stuff like that, it is your immune system saying, shit is not right. And for some people, it's their intestinal tract.
Yeah.
Because other than your skin, which is kind of the first layer of defense, a lot of your immunity lives in your gut. So if you feel like, oh, my guts are off, you know, you might be eating the same thing week in, week out. You're like, well, I don't really, we always have this on this night and that on that night. And you haven't eaten anything dodgy, but you're like, oh, my God. Inconsistency in stool sample.
Yeah.
That's what they do in the hospital. They take stool samples and
Looking at your poo is important.
yeah, they're like, well, how consistent is that? And I think it sounds strange, but really, a lot of your immunity does live in your gut. So if suddenly your guts are off, that could be a sign that your immune system is playing up too. It's not just you ate dodgy food.
Yeah, that's a really good one. I notice that like I'll notice when I'm talking about like bowel movements.
As you do.
When we're here to have the conversation with you guys that you can't have with your friends.
That's true.
Because you don't want to look uncool. But
you know us, we like to
JT's
talk
got
shit.
no problem looking uncool. You will lean into that.
Let's go.
But like if I'm a bit beat up, like say I have a really shit sleep, or which will often happen, say on a weekend if I go out and have a few drinks.
Sure.
I'll have a shit sleep. The next day, my like movement is all fucked up.
Yep.
And I'm like, whoa, hang on a second. I'm not regular like I am. And I know it's thrown out. And that's kind of, right, that's a good indicator of like, hey man, you're not really operating particularly well today.
Yeah.
Don't go f***ing whatever. Don't go nuts at the open mat. Don't go lift heavy weights.
Yeah. And I think this is the thing, like you were saying, immune system is usually the first thing. And we always blame external stuff with immunity. We're like, oh, so-and-so was sneezing at work and it's their fault I'm sick. But I guess
we look for the culprit. Like, what did I do?
There was something outside. But often what it can be is the accumulation of hard week of training, many weeks of built up lifting, stress at work. Like everyone's trying to go nuts to get stuff done before a deadline. You're at uni, you got exams. There's all these stress factors that pile on, which ultimately contribute to it presenting as your immune system can only take so much, and then maybe it's the straw that breaks the immune system's back, and then you get sick.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily one big thing. It can be that accumulation of life stuff.
And I think that sort of, like that comparison you make of like, what was the thing that made me sick? There's an assumption there that you are like never exposed to like,
bacteria in every single day.
Yeah, it kind of assumes that like you're not constantly fighting against things in your environment.
Yeah.
But the thing is, your immune system constantly
It's fighting
is.
every day.
Yeah, and so when you're healthy and well rested, your immune system can do a great job.
You can deal with it.
And it's that time when it drops its guard, when the shit gets in. And so, yeah, I think that's a really good way to frame it in your mind of like, why are my defenses down?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, what's overloading my system?
Yeah.
And look, there's folks out there who will say, there's no such thing as overtraining, only under recovering. I heard that a million times, and that's fine. You can say it whatever way you want to say it, right? But in our day-to-day lives, it is a default mode we do too much. And I am the poster boy for that shit. Just because I have tried to scale it back, but I cannot get away from trying to get as much done in a day as possible, and it often leaves me on empty. I get home and I crash. I'm all good up until a point, and then I'm useless. And that's not the side of myself. Only Ola really gets to see me being like just non-verbal, sitting on the couch like wrecked. But then I also have to deal with that. I don't leave a lot in the tank for me to just feel healthy and good outside of my day-to-day pursuits. And this is bad. This is a bad habit, because I actually find myself feeling unhealthy when I could just be feeling good. It's like I want to use myself up. But it's like you're not a battery pack, that you're a human being. You should actually feel good. You should be able to find moments of feeling good outside of the stuff you do. And if you're not, and this might go to your next point, Joe, maybe you got to go, there's so much on right now. And a lot of people go, well, I don't have time to stretch, or I can't afford to get a massage, or I can't not do everything at once. Well, once you get sick and injured, you can't do anything. You are forced to stay at home, take the drugs, sit on the couch, have the fever, and then nothing's getting done. And so I think being able to scale back is a pretty important thing, whatever it might be, to stop you from redlining and ultimately getting injured or sick.
Yeah, my old man was notoriously terrible at taking holidays.
Right.
And he ran his own business. He ran like a nursery, right? So he did really well with it. And Mum was in the business too, but 50-50, right? She was there, but that he was like
pushed it.
He was the guy. He was the horticulturalist. He was the one that had the passion for plants, etc. And he was great at it. Whenever a holiday would come around, and I only understood this once I started my own small business, right? And a physical business like the gym.
Yep.
A business that it was a building that had to open up every day, and people wanted to come there, and it's like the lights have got to be on and shit.
You have to show up.
And he hated taking holidays, and we'd always, he'd end up coming on holiday. And day one of every holiday, he'd get sick. And he'd get a migraine. Migraines were his. So he'd come away where, we're going to the snow or some shit.
Yeah.
And then he'd be struck down with this hectic migraine.
Right.
And, you know, I can kind of remember a few instances, but I think he would either be stuck on the couch for the whole trip or he'd just f off back home. Yeah. And, you know, and it's like, so there's something interesting in that, right? Which is whereby your body somehow understands that we got to keep it together because we're in the middle of it right now.
Yeah.
And then as soon as you have the opportunity to chill, it goes, all right, now you're going to pay.
Yeah.
And
for sure. It's that. Sorry. Yeah.
Continue. No, I mean, it's just, I don't know what it is. Maybe like the stress hormones or something that are present when you're in there. Yeah. I like giving you some kind of short-term immunity. Just so you can just get up and grind again one more week and then we're going to strike you with this migraine or tonsillitis or whatever. Yeah. It's amazing how that happens, don't you think?
Yeah. And if you look at a lot of our cold and flu drugs, they're stimulants. They're like,
through.
Yeah. It's
they're great, by the way.
Oh, it's great, mate. I'll smash a Lemsip. You give me 1,000 grand.
I never had a Lemsip.
It's the best. It's just paracetamol and like
lemon.
Like a stimulant, like a low grade speed basically.
Yeah.
So you're just like, no, it contains no lemon, has lemon flavor.
How good.
You're just like, it's a warm drink, so you get that nice warm drink thing. But then it's like the pain's gone away, and now I feel energetic.
You're like, fuck, I'm gonna start a new app.
Productivity. But with that, I always used to find it with jiu-jitsu competitions. There would be so much stress building up to the competition and hard training. The stress of the competition itself was really full on. It was adrenaline all day. You know, I always used to like to fight weight and absolute. So you might have 2 days of immense whatever. The comp's over, huge relief. And then the next week I was and you may have experienced this. And definitely chuck this in the comments if you experienced this. The post-competition come down where you can barely train, maybe because the adrenaline's worn off, the injuries from the comp or whatever's come through. And I always used to just be wrecked every week post-comp. And the more I competed, the crooker I was through this stress cycle. But it's interesting what you say there, Joe, that we have created these artificial, like when I say artificial, like man-made, human-made constructions of like Christmas holidays or Easter break or summer break. And there's this deadline, like tax time, we've got to get it in before the end of the financial year. And people are like, oh, it's hectic around tax time. And I'm like, I don't do my tax, who cares? Leave that to the accountant. Also for many years didn't have an accountant. But, it's one of those things that it's totally artificial. And everyone's like, oh man, this time of year, it's so stressful, isn't it? Yeah, I know, it's so stressful. And people are just geeing themselves up. And then, oh, now we have holidays, we can have a break. And people just,
yeah.
It just,
yeah.
And it's interesting.
Somehow our physiology can calibrate with these man-made sort of down periods.
Yeah, but it's this overload that then results in sickness or injury or the next thing.
Yeah.
And I believe within this, you said there was a third thing.
There is a third thing.
Please.
Third one is you notice that your sleep starts to fall to shit.
Oof.
And this could be because you're getting sick. It could be because the niggling injury is popping up at 2 a.m. and waking you up every night, right? Keeps you tossing and turning. But just generally, I think most of us, except for those that have great sleep privilege, if you have that, then you probably never think about your sleep.
Fuck you.
Yeah, you just have an awesome time for like 8 or 9 hours every night.
Enjoy your life.
But I would say for the majority of us, we kind of wake up every day and like review our sleep. I'm a bit tired. I had a shit sleep, you know. And so when you notice that generally your sleep quality is reduced, maybe the duration's fine, but you're like, I'm waking up, I'm not feeling rested, was tossing and turning. You had a piece on this, right?
Yeah. One of the massive signs that you're doing too much is your body temperature is elevated and you're sweaty as hell. Your body's under stress and we want you to be able to get through without getting injured. Dehydration is going to kill your ability to take this stress. The solution? Sodi. Sodi is the perfect mix of sodium, potassium, and magnesium, which is going to enable the water to be in your muscles, ready to fight any stress that you combat. You go to sodi.com.au and use the code Bulletproof 15. You get 15% off, get some delicious hydration salts, and you'll be ready to take on any challenge. So for me, with the sleep thing, I'm a hot-blooded human. I'm also a sweaty human. Body temp.
He just eats too much animal fat. That's all it is.
That's true. Just me pumping, just drinking.
He's like, my physiology is totally different to you guys'.
It is. Built different. No, I think it's one of those things that and part of the reason why I kind of stopped training at nighttime was I found I'd do night training for BJJ. My adrenaline would be through the roof. I get home, I'd eat, I'd drink, I'd shower, and then I'd be sweating. Like the adrenaline would still be going.
Yeah.
And I'd lie down and I throw all the covers off, trying to cool down, and Ola wants all the covers, which is totally fine. But when she goes to sleep and relaxes, she emits massive amounts of heat. And I'm trying to cool down. She's like trying to cuddle up to me. I'm like, off. Like I'm trying to cool down over here. I get the fan and shit. I'm like, I can't regulate my body temperature. And I'll even wake up and I'll be like, oh my God, my pillow and shit, like the shit is like wet with sweat. I'm like, I don't feel good.
You don't think it has anything to do with 1,000 milligrams of caffeine you ingested?
No.
Prior?
No. Actually, caffeine doesn't affect my sleep. But no. Seriously though, elevated body temperature, but this is also associated for any of you who are into the kind of heart rate variability and checking your whoop and stuff like that, even though they are wildly inaccurate.
You still making that claim?
Bro, I don't need to say shit. Ask any motherfucker. We'll find all the data. Like it's been
Wasn't it a heart rate thing that it was?
Partly heart rate, partly calorie burning, partly everything. It's not working on. But I mean, what I would say is when you are looking at, say, a sleep tracker, stuff like this, part of it will measure your physical activity, like how settled you are, and also how deep your sleep goes is dependent on your ability to cool down.
Right.
If you can't cool down, you can't reach those deeper realms of sleep. And it will be hard for you to get into the REM sleep, which is where you get great mental and physical recovery.
Yeah.
And so that's the other thing too. Elevated resting heart rate is an indicator of being under-recovered or overtrained.
Right, yeah.
So what they used to get us to do back in the days when I did Taekwondo, they were like, take your pulse as soon as you wake up. I'm like, the f*** are you talking about? I was like, my pulse is through, the alarm goes off and I'm like, the alarm. Heart rate's like 120. But basically, if your resting heart rate is elevated, your like body temp is above normal, your system is under stress.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Funny you say that. My son was actually really sick yesterday, kind of a one-off.
No.
Yeah, he's much better today, but he was really sick, like he's not normally ever, you know? And so we're like keeping an eye on him, and he was just sort of like stuck on the couch. And he slept really well last night, but we could hear, throughout the night I could hear him. He was like his breath, like his heart rate was really high.
Right.
And it's because he's got a temperature, and it's and he's fighting something, right? It was very fascinating though. Seemed to have a great sleep, and then he said, "Oh, he woke up. He's great."
Yeah.
But just fascinating, right? Yeah, like elevated body temperature, increased heart rate. Like these are all signs that like you're battling something right now.
Yeah, and the challenge here is that if like psychological factors are obviously in there. If you're really worried about something coming up or you don't know how to deal with a problem, that level of stress in your mind can also mean that you can't calm the whole system down. That's part of it too. It might not even be jiu-jitsu. It might just be like your mortgage or interest rates or
whatever. An argument with your partner or
that's
like right.
Something.
It can be something very like I had the other day, like I just had to do some work stuff right before I went to bed, and I obviously try to avoid that, but it was like, no, I'm just going to do this because this will make tomorrow a better day.
Yeah.
And then it f***ed me, like I couldn't get to sleep for a couple of hours, and I was like tired the next day, and it was like, sure, I saved something because I got it done that day, but I was like, was it worth it?
You borrowed from tomorrow.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, that point of diminishing returns.
Yeah.
Where more action doesn't equate to a better result necessarily.
So let's like,
what are we going to do with all this information?
Yeah, well,
Joe?
let's look at like when some of the when some of the classic times where this stuff will happen to you, like when you're susceptible to it, and specifically within the training space. So you already mentioned like competition.
Yep.
So you've been training really hard, building up to that. It's been a stressful event. You've got it done. Following the comp in the week after, you probably want to back it off.
Yeah.
Give yourself some leeway. I find, and this is probably what's flaring up my lower back a little bit, is when you are on a training program and you are towards the end.
The top end of the...
Yeah. And
block.
this is maybe something folks don't think about, but say you start a new program, let's say it's 6 weeks long. In the first couple of weeks, you're kind of learning new movements and finding where you're at with them. You're not going particularly heavy. And then weeks 3, 4, weight's going up. You're starting to apply more intensity in the sessions. Once you get to like weeks 5, 6, and if it's an even longer program further down the track, now all of your sets are heavy, and you also have some like accumulated fatigue from all those weeks prior. So you can often find yourself on a bit of a knife's edge at the end of a program. And this is why you would usually finish a program and then don't jump straight into a program on the next week.
Yeah.
Like kick around for a bit, deload, maybe take a week, work on some other shit in the gym.
Yeah.
Basically take it a bit lighter and then start the process again. But so, yeah, I know for me, I tend not to think about that too much.
Right.
But then I'll be like, oh, it's week 7. Oh, yeah, okay, that's why I'm feeling that way.
Yeah. And I think the problem is a lot of us, I think a lot of the chat in society is about just continual growth. You know, why isn't everything 10xing? Like, why isn't everything just up and to the right? And what we understand really well, at least from a training perspective, is you have peaks and troughs. It's this wave effect that you build up and then you back off, and you build up and you back off. And there's times where you leave something alone completely and you go work on something else. But because we have this overriding thought of, I have to get better, I don't want to miss my opportunity. There's like, it's almost like a performance anxiety, but it's reinforced by people around us. Like, oh, like you go on the grading, like, you know, there's so much social pressure around performance that it's really underrated to go.
You're do the comp, right?
Yeah,
You're
competing.
Yeah.
You're training for the comp. You're pretty good. You should. You're like, oh, my ego just pricked up. Should I compete? Maybe I should compete. Oh, it's just like, no, man, it's really, and I think it's a byproduct of the kind of first world Western capitalist culture, which is just,
you're starting to sound like me, bro.
Do I sound like a communist? No, but I'm saying it's unreasonable to think that you're always just going to get stronger and stronger and you're always going to get better and better. Things do not work like that. And sometimes you've got to go to the side a bit, back a little bit.
Yeah.
But that's why the consistency is important, and built into the consistency, I think, and this is something we've talked about many times before, is your ability to achieve something or see improvement, but then also not necessarily give yourself a break, but like
back off, like allow yourself to be in a trough a little bit.
Yeah, you don't have to always push the same thing over and over. And if we look at the seasons and food and the way we've lived throughout our whole lives, it was very rare you ever got to do the same thing every day, all day. Like, that's just not how life was. And the fact that we've artificially created this environment can actually lead us to less better outcomes because we're just doing the same shit all the time.
Yeah, spot on. I was listening to a guy recently. I can't remember the subject of the discussion, but he was talking about how I think he was talking about like winter solstice.
Oh yeah,
in the northern hemisphere, and how you would have like basically the like summer would be extremely busy because you would be harvesting.
Yep. And
so you know, you'd be spring you're planting, summer you're harvesting, and it's like hard physical work. And then winter comes, or then like the autumn comes, and it's like, yeah, you can't really do anything now. But that was almost the down period that people needed to give them the energy to then go hard next summer.
Yeah.
You know, next spring rather. And it's like, yeah, we've just bypassed all that. We've got the drugs to mask it. We've got the caffeine. We've got the culture and the mindset. We've got the artificial light.
Yeah.
And we do all expect that it's just like what am I like 1% better every day, every week, whatever. And I mean, I'm guilty of this, right? You have that expectation of yourself. And then when you get struck down, you're like, I'm sick, I'll take a few days off.
Yeah.
But the smarter way to do it, and I think as a practice, and this is something I try to do, is to recognize when you're getting those signals and go, well, if I take one step back this week, then next week I can take 2 steps forward. And that's on a long enough timeline, that's consistent growth.
That's progress.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I think that's the big takeaway for you guys is if you feel one of these things is cropping up and it happens to you, it's like, this is not the first time this has happened. Back it off for a bit. Take it easy. Don't do the fucking hard rounds that night. Don't go super heavy at the gym. Maybe take a day off training and like go for a swim in the ocean or some shit.
Do
like
something different.
Yeah, do something different. Like have a good sleep, eat some food, get hydrated, and then fucking win tomorrow.
Some days pour harder.
That's right.
There it is, folks.
Keep an eye out for the Some Days Pour Harder t-shirt.
What?
Maybe available soon. We will let you know.
Oh, exciting.